Hello, my name's Cliff Freilich. I'm the Executive Director of Cinema St. Louis, the presenters of the 29th Annual Whitaker St. Louis International Film Festival. We're really pleased to be joined for a conversation by André Robert Lee, who is the director of the documentary short, Virtually Free, which you've just seen as part of the Doc Shorts program Behind the Bars. We're especially happy to have André with us because he's a two-time alum of the cinema of St. Louis Film Fest. We played his earlier film Prep School Negro. Actually, I think we featured it twice in different forms, a different cut, and then also I'm not racist, am I? Another terrific film, both of which were also part of our Cinema for Students programs, and they were very well embraced. So this film, Andre, deals with youth who are enmeshed in the criminal justice system, and the one means of potentially offering them a way out is this program that you chronicle in the film. So let's talk about how you stumbled across the program, how you became involved in making a film about it.
Thank you, Cliff. It's so good to be here again. This is one of my favorite film festivals, so I'm honored to be back. The Shine Global reached out to me. They're the company that was behind the production of the film. They're committed to films that advocate for and fight for justice for young people. And the head of the company, the president of the company, I think it is, Susan Lowry, was somewhere talking to, she's talking to Dawn Porter, who was our exec producer on it. And Dawn mentioned the program, and Susan said, that sounds great. We should make a film about it. And so they put their heads together and looked around and this and that. And Susan and I have worked on a project prior to this about the election for young people called the Election Effects Project. And Susan said, Andre, would you be interested in working on this project? And I said, what is it? She described it. And I tried to be professional, but I was like, yes, this sounds fantastic. This is important. Anything to help young people when it comes to incarceration and being detained, I was on board already. And then a funny thing happened is in our first phone call, Mark, who's featured in the film, he and I were talking, and we remembered that we had met about 5-6 years prior to that moment. And he said, hey, I work on a project in Virginia that helps children that are incarcerated. You should make a movie about it. And here we were on the first call after not having talked for years. It was great.
So things just seem to come together to encourage you in this direction and to make the film. So talk a little bit about your experience during the shoot. Where are you based versus this was in Richmond, Virginia. So how long were you there? And exactly did you feel you needed more time than what you were given? And then you, of course, decided to make a doc short as opposed to a doc feature, although you edged right up to feature length. So talk a little bit about that whole decision making, the amount of time that you spent and why you decided to go for a short.
Yeah. I'm based in New York City. Was when the film was being made. I've moved since then. And the film was shot in Richmond, Virginia. So it's a good 6 to 8 hour drive, depending on the day and the driver. And we would load the car up and go down there and immerse ourselves in the community. When you work in the South, people in the South want to sit and talk and have a conversation and get to know you and trust you before they just let you in. We're also working with incarcerated children. So that was another relationship we had to build to gain trust between them, their families, and institutions that held them, and also the artists that work with them. So we covered the program exists over a summer, about 6 to 8 weeks. And so we went back and forth throughout that time period, a little bit before and a little bit after, and then went back again in the fall, winter, when the exhibit that the children created went up, and then back again, sort of touch base with local elected officials and police department people and the chief of police and the mayor. So it was a good 2 years of back and forth, I would say, because it was one summer, fall, winter, another summer, fall, winter, and then we begin to edit, And to be honest, our limited time frame came from budget. It's hard to fund movies. It's really hard to fund movies. And you know, I did this film without getting paid. We didn't have a budget for a director, so I said, okay, I'll do my other projects and do what I can because this project is so important. And I'm not saying this to sound self-congratulatory because it wasn't fun. You know, fun to make money, not make money rather. And but I knew this project was important. So when it came time to editing, we had an editor who worked with us at a much lower rate. Nick Clark, who's a fantastic, really great editor. He and his partner Charlie Sadolf are just great. They worked at us at a much lower rate. Probably shouldn't be telling the business, but it is what it is. And as we looked at it and planned, we felt and decided this would work better as a short film. There was, of course, there's always enough to make a long version, you know. But you ever, I'm sure we all sit in every documentary we sit and go, you could shave 30 minutes there, shave 10 here, shave here. So we tried to keep it so you wouldn't feel that way. And also, I'm very concerned about reaching educational audiences, and this time frame fits into an assembly. It really does, you know. And also trying to apply and get into film festivals and award universes. All that stuff was, in my heart, honestly, secondary. But it came down to, can we tell it as a short film? Will we hold the audience? How can we impact and gather young people and make them stay interested? You know, and all that under real budgetary constraints.
Now, obviously, the film makes a clear case on behalf of performing statistics, the program. But just talk a little bit about your own reaction to the program. You obviously knew about it going in. You had positive feelings, otherwise you wouldn't have been making the movie thinking that was a good thing. But as it all unfolded and you saw what was transpiring in front of you, what are your thoughts about the importance of this program and programs like it in the lives of young people who are caught up in the criminal justice system?
Yeah, I don't think children should be in prison. I really do not believe that. And anything we can do to keep them from being incarcerated is necessary. We should try and find a way to do that. So the program performing statistics, you know, I went in the first day not being sure what it would be like and what would happen, and instantly from day one thought, wow, these people care about these children. They love these children. They're trying to give them direction and opportunities and help them have a life after being incarcerated. So I was taken in with it right away. And they weren't just doing it to do good, they were doing it because it mattered and they understood the people's lives. Gina, who you meet in the film, who talked about being formerly incarcerated, she understood this existence in life as a child being in prison. So her input and understanding into this was tremendous and really shaped it. And then to watch the artists really give their care and concern and dedicate their work to the children's support and love and encouragement and faith and growth. I think the big message is that love heals, yes, but art heals. Art can be used as a tool to heal. And they were teaching their children how to actually be the artists themselves and take control of their narrative and retell their stories and honestly feel good about themselves. A lot of these children, oftentimes kids who are incarcerated, are there for various reasons that are connected to disconnection, lack of support, lack of access. And this program is all about turning all that around and trying to help them be the best people they can be.
Now, the program's obviously multidisciplinary. It teaches them different ways of making art and sharing their stories through different means. I'm curious, it's probably I shouldn't probably put you in this position, but I'm curious as to whether or not you thought one approach in particular was the most effective in sort of bringing the kids in and really transforming the way in which they look at things.
Uh, yeah, I'm going through, and that is an unfair question because I'll say all of them were so great. All of them were so great. But the first project I saw them do, that's a, well, no, this is not a second project. This project, they would start, it's an art class, so you start multiple projects. And the first day they had to dye paper with coffee grains. And I was like, what are they doing? You know? And the idea was to make paper that looked like faded and brown and stained. And they were reclaiming their mugshots was the exercise. And they were talking about how when you get arrested, you get a mugshot, you get a number, and you're identified. And this is what the world thinks of you. They see the picture, the number, they think criminal, bad person. And what the artists were having to do is they were having the children take the pictures, set them up. They were staining the paper themselves and putting on racks to dry, and then they were writing out what they want people to know about them. So how can you reclaim your mugshot? I thought that was so powerful because sadly they know what a mugshot is, and sadly they all had mugshots. And this was a way to say, you know what does it mean for you to redefine how the world sees you? And that, I mean, that's phenomenal. It's mind blowing. It's so wonderful to witness and see. So I got to see the children really take control of their narrative and retell their story. And just the name alone, reclaiming your mugshot, is phenomenal. And the mugshots were various things like, you know, educate us, don't harm us, hear us, love us, we're here. I'm not everything you think you know about me. You know, all these great lines that they had written, and it was their own handwriting, and a picture of themselves that was like silhouetted and treated. So it's just this beautiful presentation. And there were sometimes you would see the artists hand the work back to the students, to teens, and say, you know what, you made this. And like, I made this? And it's like, yeah, you just went through the whole process, but they couldn't believe it was so great and so beautiful and such a positive experience. So I would, if I had to pick, I would identify the reclaiming your mugshot exercise as one of the most powerful pieces.
Now, of course, the part of the process is they create this virtual jail that I'm sure it's cathartic for them, but really that's more designed for other people, the folks who aren't familiar with what happens to folks in jail, to have just a tiny, tiny taste of what that experience might be like. So, you want to talk a little bit about your own experience with the virtual jail?
Yeah, the kids went. They had a great team, great director. I'd say production team came in and made helped the children go through creating a virtual film that was about recreating a virtual cell from a teenager's perspective. And I got to tell you, it was upsetting to put the mask on and experience it. It was scary and felt unfair and cruel. And all you could think about was like, I want to take these off. I want to take these off. And you leave them on and think, well, the kids are inside these spaces for months at a time. And what's it like to be a 13-year-old inside this little small box? That is not very pleasant. So the virtual piece was it was hard for you not to give that as my most favorite, but you brought about exactly why I didn't choose it as a favorite, because that is for the audience. Yes, it helps the children, but to see the children look at stuff that was like, oh, this is me in this picture, and this is for me. I feel better. I've reclaimed my story. The virtual um, experience, it's rough. It's so difficult. You put it on and you're thinking it's just a mask, but you're all of a sudden inside this tiny space looking around and trying to move, and your hands can't really stretch out all the way out. It was very powerful, very, very powerful to put those goggles on and have that experience. And I felt myself, really proud of them for having created that work.
Now, are people outside of Richmond able to experience that particular aspect of the virtual prison?
Yeah, it's interesting. In another world that's not led by COVID, performance statistics have planned to take the entire gallery experience around the country and lead conversations. They do a lot of work with all kinds of people, but we don't live in a world right now where you can hand off goggles to someone and have put on their eyes. That's just not something in a public space right now. So they've been working, and I wish I had the information today, but I know they're working to figure out how else can they do this and have this, because the experience really is a handheld, put the goggles on and feel the experience it kind of situation. So I know that they're trying to work that out. I mean, our dream was like to take the film on the road, You watch the film and then you walk through a door and go into the gallery that was recreated. All the stuff you see in the movie, and you experience. You know, you have someone doing the like, prisoner 45621, come through, and you come in this space that they would rebuild and put the goggles on. But that's on hold right now. Um, that's a very long way to say, gosh, I hope that we can someday have people, because it changes you. When you think about a child inside a prison cell, you know, it's horrible. It's horrible. And these were, I say this again and again, these are not young men and women. These are boys and girls. These are boys and girls, 13, 14, 15. Look at your 13, 14, 15-year-old and imagine if they had to leave your house and go be put in a prison cell. Um, it's just, it's unspeakable as I think about it.
Well, you keep emphasizing the way in which you refer to them as children to sort of hammer that point home that these aren't young adults. These are kids. And if you want to really do something to help them, don't put them in jail or prison rather, but rather offer them some opportunities that allow them to break out of those patterns that they've fallen into. And of course, you know, the environments that unfortunately oftentimes lead them down those pathways. Can you bring us up to speed with regard to what's transpired in the lives? When did the film end as far as the shooting, and then can you just give us a little idea of what the kids who were featured in the film have gone on to do?
Mhm. I think we did our last bit of filming in the end of the year 2018, you know, and then we spent the year editing, and you know, one little shot here and there, nothing major. Um, I'm glad to report all the boys that we witness and see in the film are doing well. You know, Sid is doing great. Sid is a young man now. He's in his 20s, and he and his girlfriend just got an apartment in Richmond. You know, doing big boy stuff. He's doing well, trying to find his way. Um, he had a bit of experience trying to get out and find his place to live, but he worked out. AR was released. AR was back in at the end of the film, and he was released recently, which is such great news. AR is a wonderful kid, and really super, and is out now. Let's pray to God he stays out. Has opportunities to keep him out. Tay, who we also witnessed, his family moved out of Richmond. I think his mother wanted other opportunities and to try something else, and just she talked about not really enjoying the city. I think she also took a work opportunity, and they've moved out of Richmond, and they seem to be doing well. Marcus Tucker, who you see in the film, is my contact for them, and he has told me that everyone's doing pretty well, pretty well.
Well, obviously, people who have watched the film will be happy to hear that because it's always a concern.
Yeah.
People actually fall back into those patterns, and again, oftentimes through no particular fault of their own, because they aren't given sufficient opportunities.
No, no. At the end of the filming, AR was back inside, you know, and was potentially facing being tried as an adult and faced 4 years. I'm glad to say he's out now.
Now, as I mentioned, we've done a couple of your films previously, and you are very strongly engaged with issues of race in your films, and it continues in this. I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about the continuity between the films that you've made and new directions that you want to head in, new avenues that you want to go
Mhm,
down.
mhm. Are you getting all choked up? I miss you too. um, yeah, you know, it's interesting because when I started out making my films, there wasn't like, I'm going to make films about this and follow this pattern. It was, this is what I'm good at. This is what I speak to. This is what I care about, you know? And so you know, this film came along and I was like, this fits right into my wheelhouse. I have another film that I'm finishing right now about a civil rights trip down there. I also lead civil rights trips. We go all throughout the South. And I did one week with junior high school students, another week with older adults, and sort of trying to trying to find a way to tell that story. Um, and you know, the world is very complicated right now. I mean, it always has been kind of very complicated, but I think some of those complications are getting a little more light and breathing room, and honestly, energy and fuel to their fires. So like a high school girl once asked me, she said, "Why do you make these films? Your films have crazy titles and they're really heavy, and I don't imagine you make a lot of money, you know?" And I was like, "That's very astute of you, young lady, bring out all those truths." And what I said was, I said, I make it for very selfish reasons. I make it so I can sleep better at night. When I look around the world, I want to do something to fix and try and make the world a better place for all of us. And I hope that my films can do that, and that the art heals, and that we have a chance to really bring folks forward to participate in this conversation in new ways, and to change, to honestly change. We need change in this world.
All right, well, we hope that we'll be seeing you again then with that new work that's in process, so we can feature it at the festival. And if all goes well, perhaps we'll be back to having in-person festival in November of 2021. Uh, I remain somewhat skeptical of that right now, but we'll see. I sure hope that that's the case. And I certainly hope that things allow you to go out with virtually free and do what you had planned and actually exhibit that artwork to replicate the experience that audiences had in Richmond across the country. So fingers crossed
Yeah.
that that will eventually happen.
And if I will, you'll probably cut this out because I know you're very modest. I really do admire you for all the work you do with this festival and the care you give to filmmakers. And I just have to express again, thank you so much for keeping it going. I know it's
Well,
not easy.
well, thank you, Andre. I very much appreciate those kind words. Uh, I again would love to have you here at the festival for a third time, but we'll wait perhaps to 2021 and do it then.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.